Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
Hello, and welcome to the End in Mind podcast. I'm your host, Caitlin, the owner of Meraki Media Management. The End in Mind is a place where we come to share stories, tips, and strategies of many entrepreneurs, creatives, business owners, and just some people that aren't willing to live the traditional lifestyle. We talk about how to live outside of the box today and how to incorporate what really is important in your life to keep that end goal always in mind. Again, if you would like to reach out to me in any type of way, you can find me on Instagram at Meraki_media_management. And I hope to hear from you all soon. Thanks so much and enjoy our show. What is up, party people? Welcome back to the End in Mind podcast. And I want to mention this at the beginning of our episode. If you guys love our show, we are still running our giveaway. I want you guys to know we are trying to support your local community by giving you all a $25 coffee gift card to a local coffee shop of your choice. So what I'll do is I'll probably send you a Visa $25 gift card. And the only rules is to spend it at one of your local stores, whether that be like a deli, a coffee shop, but let us put some, funding back into your local community. And all you have to do is leave us an Apple Podcast review. So we will get in touch with you if you leave your Instagram handle in there. I will announce the winner on our podcast. Once we get enough reviews, I'll let you know a few podcasts ahead of time that we'll be picking the winner soon. So this is my opportunity to give back to you all, show you all how much I care about you leaving our reviews. Without reviews, this show does not really reach any more people. So if you are not in the podcasting world, which I was not, it's really hard for us to spread awareness without reviews. So that's why it's so important that we get more podcast reviews. If you've already left a review, leave another one. You can leave as many as you want. I frequently leave reviews on other podcast shows, especially since I've realized how hard it is to get podcast reviews. It's very difficult. So if you guys would mind just taking like a few minutes out of your day, it literally will take you under a minute. And hopefully you'll win an awesome gift card out of it and let us fund some of your local community. So it's the best of both worlds. And leading into this podcast episode, I am going to be talking about a line that I recently heard on another podcast that really stuck with me. I think it's so true. This is all about why showing up authentically online is so important, and how when you don't share all of the sides of business on social media, it can start to come across really spammy, like you're, almost like a robot and nothing ever bad happens to you. It doesn't give off good vibes. People want to know that you're human, that you're real, that, mistakes happen, things happen in life. And I want to talk about what to share and what not to share. I recently have been observing, like on my personal page, how I feel about people that are sharing like things in their personal life that don't really have anything to do with their business, and how it started to make me feel about their Instagram accounts. Like some of these people I honestly am thinking about unfollowing, and I've been following them for a while, so that's why I haven't yet. But the second I normally feel this type of emotion within me, like I will unfollow immediately. If you guys know me, especially on my business account, I block people like left and right, like block the haters, block the creeps. That one more follower adding to your page is not building your credibility as much as it's going to hurt you in the long run. These creepy people shouldn't be on your page anyways. So block them. give them the block and let it roll off your back. But getting back to how to really show up authentically online without oversharing. So this line was from Project Me with Tiffany. She is awesome, has a great podcast. If you're kind of into my style, you may be into her style as well. She's really like real and open. She talks about her childhood trauma. She talks a lot about all the different ups and downs that she's gone through in life. And it's really beneficial as being an only child. She's also an only child. How funny. I'm an only child. She's an only child. How therapeutic her podcast has been for her. I now feel the same way about my podcast. And I think it's kind of funny. Like if you are an only child, we didn't have that many people to talk to growing up. So you kind of like internalize your creativity, and like a lot of my time was spent like crafting, cleaning, organizing, like as a young age, because I didn't really have a lot of people to play with like throughout my day. So I just gravitate towards her school of thought very much so. And I think that with her podcast and how I feel about mine, it's very therapeutic to just kind of like share these things that happened because you don't really have siblings to talk about them with. So yeah, that's my spiel on Tiffany. If you haven't listened to her podcast, it's called Project Me. Great podcast. And this episode she just put out, her line was "Secrets keep you stuck." And I want us to sit with this school of thought for a second, because this is definitely something that held me back, for a really long time. It still holds me back. There's certain parts or things that happen in life that you're afraid to share, and maybe you don't want to share, right? Because my Instagram account is not a place that I'm sharing, whatever XYZ happened in my life, or, that I got in a car accident last week, or, how terrible that was. Like certain things you just don't share. Like, yes, you may be going through something in life, but you can simply put up an Instagram story like, hey, like I'm absent today. See you guys tomorrow. Like that's showing up authentically, because you're not trying to put on this facade that you're always prim, proper, perfect, and you have your makeup done, and, your hair's always done when you get on your stories. Like that's what I'm trying to say is not showing up authentically. But there is also a line of oversharing. So I'm going to give an example of this. This one like really rubbed me the wrong way. And I don't want to offend anybody if you do feel like at times maybe you overshare, because sometimes oversharing can be a good thing. And really what you can do is just tap into your intuition. Like intuitively, do I think that my followers would benefit from hearing this? If it's yes, share it. If it's no, sleep on it. Give yourself some time to digest and work through before you just share it. So this woman that I follow, she is an influencer. This is on my personal page. I really follow a lot of influencer accounts, like things that I'm interested in. Like I love like home improvement. Just bought my house last year, so I'm into that stuff. Like follow a lot of like fun fashion influencers, just like stuff that I'm into on my personal page. And I'll limit my time that I engage on there, like whatever, 3 days a week, every night sometimes, depends on my mood. But so this influencer, she does run a business, so it's beneficial for me to follow her. She does furniture flipping, actually. And she shared on her story like this really unfortunate event of them going to an Airbnb and like staying in this Airbnb, and it wasn't cleaned properly. And then like all of these other terrible things happened to her like while she was there. And then she ended up offending some people on her page with like rhetoric and words that she used. And to me, I clearly saw the turn of events. Like, okay, if she wouldn't have shared this like really negative experience that really didn't have anything to do with her business, like yes, maybe taking time off like would have been beneficial to share, but not this negative side to the experience, then maybe people wouldn't have been offended, and like maybe the stories and the turn of events like would have gone in a different direction, like if she hadn't opened that part of her life up to social media. So the reason why I think it rubbed me the wrong way is because I follow her account for like fun furniture flips and like a working mom that's like driving her own business from home. And like I come to her page to feel, inspired, excited, like ready to tackle my day. Or sometimes I come to her page to be like, yeah, I'm a normal mom, right? Like I live a normal lifestyle. Like my house is a mess, but I'm still doing furniture flips. Like see how that kind of like takes a different type of tone. And then versus her sharing this like negative experience at this Airbnb, it just felt really heavy. And then all of a sudden, like the stories just felt super dark and nothing was coming back to like, hey, remember, like, we have all of this great stuff and like, no worries because, like with Airbnb, we're just going to plan another trip and like, this is what it's like with going with the flow. Like there wasn't any positive spin to it. And I think that simply came down to her feeling some type of emotion instead of sleeping on it, right? And not sharing it right then in the moment. It kind of gave off this like different type of energy that wasn't jiving with me. So I instantly tapped into myself, like, what is this bringing up for me? Do I want to unfollow? Should I give her a second chance? I'm going to give her a second chance, because everyone makes mistakes. And when we overshare, sometimes that means that like something is happening internally within us, right? And maybe we need to go work on that, right? Or like maybe just figure out like why we're oversharing. So I can be an oversharer. Like you guys hear me on this podcast. I feel this podcast is a safe place for me to share about my personal life, my experiences. Like I said, like showing up with Tiffany and explaining how much that made me feel connected to her as I was listening to her podcast. Like that's the emotion and that's what I want you all to feel when you come to this place. Like this is a place for you to be you, whether you're having a shit day or not, right? Like we talk about all of the ups and downs, but we still always come back to business. And that's the driving force of this podcast. It's for entrepreneurs. That's the end in mind, right? So we never lose sight of that. And that's what's so important when it comes to your business Instagram page too. You cannot lose sight of what is your real driving force? Like, why are people coming to your page? They're coming here for furniture flips. They're coming here for Instagram tips. They're coming here for business advice. They're coming here to learn more about how to start a podcast, right? Like if there's a certain niche for your business, that should always be in the facade of what you're sharing. So when I share my puppy Bailey, I'm sharing with you what it looks like during my work day. Right? And then sometimes I'll share her on the weekends with like her little Halloween costume on, right? Or like I'll share us going for a walk because that's all about mindset. So it always comes back to the business aspect. And why I wanted to start off with sharing this ideology that Tiffany shared, which was secrets keep you stuck, is like those stories that she shares on her podcast, the things that I tell you guys about in my life, those secrets were keeping me stuck, right? Like the more I kept them bottled up about how my dad passed away and how he taught me the secret and how, I've been working through all of these different types of limiting beliefs and going to therapy. Like if I didn't share that with my community, then I would feel stuck. Like I would feel like I wasn't showing up in integrity and showing you all who I really am. Like who I am evolving to be and why these stories have made me who I am, right? So unless I started to share them, I would be stuck. And that's what's so hard because we don't know, like, is this an appropriate story to share? Or is this oversharing about like the Airbnb being a crap situation, right? So really what it comes down to is only you can know if it's appropriate to share or not. And there may be messes up, right? Like there may be a moment where you share something and you're like, oh, I shouldn't have shared that. Okay, well, next time maybe you just sleep on it. Like we said, right? We're all human. We always make mistakes. We're human. Like I'm sure exactly like what I said earlier, I overshare, right? Like there's moments where I've overshared too. That's why I'm giving her a second chance, right? Because it wasn't something that like really triggered me or I was like, oh my gosh, I can never like listen to this girl talk again or something. It was more so I come to this page for like furniture flip ideas and I don't really feel like I want to hear about like your dirty Airbnb, And that's why tapping into yourself and understanding your following is so important. This also happened with an account that I was working on They grew very, very rapidly, super high numbers. It's not that their mission wasn't defined, but I think that their mission online and how they showed up online wasn't defined. Like they didn't have a brand that they felt comfortable in and understand like how to show up on Instagram presenting that mission, right? So that's when else this conversation can get lost. And that really comes down to you as the business owner, understanding your values, understanding your goals, understanding your ideal client. All of these things are imperative to getting to know what you should share and what you shouldn't. So when you get on, right, like when she's like getting on to potentially share this story about the Airbnb, she could have asked herself like, are my followers going to benefit from this information? Is this going to make them feel like we're all human? Or is this kind of me just like showing up and like, I hate to say it, but like complaining a little bit, right? Because we all have emotions. Like there's some days where, you know, maybe a client let me go, right? And I feel like shit about it. And I want to share on my story like, you know, this client just let me go and they have all these different outlooks on Instagram and I don't believe in it. And like I could show up in that negative aspect, right? But every time, if I get the urge anymore, it really like doesn't come as quickly as it used to, right? Especially now that I've learned my ideal client, I know that that would turn my client off. I know that my client would be like, well, what's she going to say about me? Like if I ever end up like ending the contract, right? And like, that's just not who I am and that's not who I want to be. So when you continue down this path of like finding your values, understanding your ideal client, defining your business even more, the more you can get clear on this is something my client needs to know nothing about. And this is something that's actually going to make my client like understand me better and get to know who I am and who I am creating myself to be as this inner CEO, like better, right? Versus having honestly an emotional breakdown when a client lets me go, right? So it's not letting the emotion creep in before I can understand how I want to share it. So that's why sleeping on things is so important. Like I remember when I was first starting this podcast, one of my limiting beliefs was like, I'm gonna have to talk about everything that's like wrong in my life or like anything that's ever bad happened to me. That's not the truth at all. Like the way that I present my story gives me the power to control like how it's perceived and the way I want to perceive it. So I had to do a lot of work around how I wanted to show up in this podcast, how I wanted to present my honestly past traumas, right? We've all had them. We've all been through a lot of shit if we're walking on this planet. We've all seen stuff, right? So how can I continue to present my story in a way that is in alignment with who I am today and how those experiences have created who I am, right? Versus the emotion that I maybe felt in the moment when I was processing those certain situations. So it comes in so many different ways. But what it comes down to is those certain secrets will keep you stuck. Exactly like what I said. A limiting belief of starting this podcast was, I'm going to have to share too much. Is that true? No. So I did it anyway, right? And throughout this podcast, like I have hired an editor, I've hired more team members, I've learned more about myself than I ever have before. I've talked through a lot of stuff with you guys that I thought I would never share ever. I've worked through a lot of like my relationship ups and downs, right? Like all of these better things have come out of me starting this podcast. I started going to therapy, like so many things have changed. And I am so grateful for simply this vehicle that has almost taken the mirror and shown me certain things about myself that I wanted to define more or understand better or explore with curiosity instead of judgment. And that all comes down to not letting your secrets keep you stuck. I just want you guys to think about some of these secrets or some of these skeletons, right? We all have a past. We all have been through things. How can you start to reshape them in your mind? How can you start to see how they benefited you? And yes, it can take a lot of work, especially on your story, right? Some of us need a lot of therapy. Some of us need life coaching. Some of us need a podcast. Some of us need, support from our family. Whatever it may be, starting to define and work through some of our secrets will help us get unstuck and launch your business forward time and time again. I never thought when I started Meraki Media Management that the reason why I would be the woman that I am today is because of this business. That's 100% true. I would never be the same person unless I took this leap of faith and unless I went all in. And I went all in. Like I really did. I never turned back. Like this is my business, This is really what I do. This is my livelihood. This is my living. This is how I make a living. And at 25 years old, if somebody would have told me that that was going to be me 3 years ago, no, never would have thought that. And that's why I want you guys to get used to showing up online in this authentic way and sharing some of these secrets, because I want this for you. I want you to have and conquer all of your goals. I want your dreams to come true. Until I started working with people in this space, I didn't realize how much certain situations can impact our lives and impact who we are time and time again. Like my therapist was explaining to me the other day, like if you don't work through these past experiences, these beliefs that you've been, given or passed down to as a child or just taken on as society, like unless we work through those beliefs and start to understand them, then we can't really control how we approach situations, right? Because we're acting out of a situation or a belief that may or may not be true, but we believe it to be true. And that's how different types of people can run into different, unfortunate events in life, whether that be a bad business deal or whatever it may be, right? A bad relationship. So the more we understand about our stories and stop keeping them secrets, because they're not really secrets. They're actually just stories. They're a part of you. They've built you. They've made you who you are. And the more you can start to understand them, the more you can start to reframe and show up as that CEO, as that person that you want to be. So I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast episode. If you get us a chance, give us a little podcast review, do me a solid. You'll be entered into that pool to win a free $25 gift card for a local shop of your choice. And I will see you guys next week. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for listening to The End in Mind. I would like to remind you all, if you haven't yet reached out to me on Instagram, we are at Meraki_media_management. It will be in our show notes as well. If you would like to reach out to me, we always offer free coaching through Instagram based around our Instagram training and our business Instagram practices. If you need any type of support, please do not hesitate to reach out to me there. And we also offer several different types of consulting and training packages if you're looking for a little bit more in-depth tips. So thank you all for listening in, and of course, I want you all to keep the end in mind as you continue with your day and or work week. Have a great week, and I will see you all next time.